When a politician's loudest reaction comes not from an opponent's attack, but from a poll released by a longtime ally, it tells us something important. This week, a Fox News poll sent shockwaves through conservative media, and no one reacted more sharply than Donald Trump himself. Within hours, frustration spilled into public view, raising a question many voters and analysts are now asking. Is this just another Trump outburst or a sign of something deeper happening in American politics? For years, Fox News has been one of Trump's most reliable platforms, often amplifying his message and defending his record. That's why this moment matters. The poll didn't just show competition within the Republican field. It revealed erosion in a space Trump once dominated. Instead of brushing it off, Trump attacked the poll, the network, and the process itself. This reaction wasn't strategic, it was emotional. And in politics, emotion can mobilize supporters, but it can also expose vulnerability. The bigger issue isn't one poll, it's the pattern. When every unfavorable result is labeled rigged, fake, or corrupt, voters eventually start to tune out. Leadership is tested not when the numbers are good, but when they're not. Strong leaders adapt, refine their message, and expand their coalition. Repeated outrage, especially toward former allies, can signal a shrinking political base rather than a growing one. When a political figure lashes out at an ally instead of an opponent, it's never just noise, it's a warning sign. That's exactly why Donald Trump's reaction to a Fox News poll deserves serious attention. This wasn't a clash with a liberal outlet or a hostile media critic. This was a public break with a network that for years helped shape his political rise and defend his brand. And in politics, alliances don't fracture unless something meaningful is shifting underneath. Fox News has long functioned as more than just a media platform for Trump. It has been a megaphone, a shield, and at times, an extension of his political operation. During his presidency and after, Fox consistently provided him with favorable airtime, sympathetic hosts, and a direct line to conservative voters. That relationship created a sense of mutual benefit and eventually mutual expectation. When Fox News released a poll that didn't flatter Trump's standing, it disrupted that dynamic. And Trump didn't respond with dismissal or confidence. He responded with fury. That reaction matters because it reveals how deeply Trump views Fox not as an independent news organization, but as a political partner. In Trump's political world, loyalty is paramount. Praise is rewarded. Criticism is punished. So when Fox aired numbers suggesting weakened dominance within the Republican field, it wasn't just data. It was perceived as betrayal. His attacks on the poll, the network, and even specific figures within Fox underscored a growing tension between Trump and the conservative media ecosystem he once dominated. This moment also reflects a broader shift inside the Republican Party. Conservative media is no longer monolithic, and neither is the GOP base. As new candidates emerge and voter priorities evolve, outlets like Fox are navigating a more complex landscape. For Trump, who thrives on control of the narrative, that complexity is a problem. His reaction suggests frustration not only with the poll's results, but with the fact that he no longer commands unquestioned loyalty from every major conservative institution. There's also a strategic cost to this kind of confrontation. Attacking Fox News risks alienating a platform that still reaches millions of Republican voters nightly. While Trump's core supporters may cheer the defiance, politics is rarely won by the base alone. Swing voters, donors, and party leaders pay close attention to how candidates handle criticism, especially from within their own camp. Turning allies into adversaries may feel powerful in the moment, but it narrows the path forward. More importantly, this clash exposes a deeper vulnerability. Confident leaders tend to project stability when faced with unfavorable information. They acknowledge challenges, pivot their messaging, and move on. Explosive reactions, by contrast, suggest insecurity. When a single poll from a friendly outlet provokes such a strong response, it raises questions about how solid the foundation really is. So this isn't just about Fox News. It's about what happens when a political figure who built his power on loyalty begins to lose it. The Trump-Fox relationship was once a cornerstone of conservative politics. Now cracks are showing, and cracks, if ignored, have a way of turning into fractures. Politics is not only about who supports you, but who still stands with you when the numbers change. And this moment, loud, emotional, and public, may be remembered as the point where a once unbreakable alliance started to come undone. Polls don't vote, but they do reveal pressure points. And when a candidate reacts angrily to numbers instead of addressing what they signal, it often means the numbers are hitting closer to home than expected. That's why the Fox News poll wasn't just another data point for Donald Trump. It was a mirror, and the reflection wasn't flattering. For years, Trump treated polling as either a victory lap or a conspiracy. When the numbers favored him, they were proof of dominance. When they didn't, they were dismissed as fake, rigged, or meaningless. But this moment feels different. The Fox poll didn't come from a hostile outlet, and it didn't show a narrow anomaly. It reflected a trend. Trump no longer holds the uncontested grip on Republican voters that once defined his political strength. This matters because Trump's power has always rested on perception as much as performance. He built his brand on inevitability, on the idea that resistance was futile and opposition temporary. Polls that show him slipping even slightly disrupt that narrative. They introduce doubt. And in politics, doubt spreads faster than certainty. When voters see numbers tightening or competitors rising, the question shifts from who will win to who can win. The reaction to the poll suggests that Trump understands this risk. Instead of downplaying the results or reframing the conversation around policy or vision, he attacked the credibility of the poll itself. That response may energize loyal supporters, but it also amplifies the very story he's trying to shut down, that his dominance is no longer guaranteed. Ironically, by reacting so forcefully, Trump gave the poll more attention than it would have received on its own. There's another layer here that's easy to overlook. Polling shapes elite behavior. Donors, party operatives, and political strategists rely on these numbers to make decisions. When polls show vulnerability, money hesitates, endorsements stall, and alternatives gain oxygen. Even small dips can have outsized consequences behind the scenes. Trump's visible frustration may signal to insiders that the campaign feels pressure, and that perception alone can alter the race. It also exposes a challenge Trump has faced since leaving office: expanding beyond his base. Polls increasingly suggest that while his core supporters remain deeply loyal, growth has stalled. Winning a nomination or a general election requires addition, not just repetition. If polling shows that his ceiling is fixed, it becomes harder to argue that time, volume, or outrage alone will change the outcome. History shows that strong candidates treat unfavorable polls as diagnostic tools. They ask what's missing, who's drifting, and how to recalibrate. Weak candidates treat polls as personal attacks. The Fox poll reaction leaned toward the latter, reinforcing concerns that Trump is more focused on controlling the narrative than confronting the data. In a race defined by endurance, adaptability matters more than dominance. So this isn't about one survey or one snapshot in time. It's about what the numbers suggest beneath the surface. Erosion of inevitability, competition where there once was fear, and vulnerability where there once was certainty. Polls don't end campaigns, but they can expose when a campaign is no longer moving forward. And when a candidate spends more energy fighting the poll than addressing the problem it reveals, the story stops being about numbers and starts being about confidence. In politics, emotion can be a weapon, but only when it's controlled. When it isn't, it becomes a tell. And in Donald Trump's response to the Fox News poll, what stood out wasn't strategy or calculation. It was raw, unfiltered emotion. That difference matters because elections aren't just about passion. They're about discipline, timing, and message control. Trump has always relied on emotional intensity as a political tool. Anger, grievance, and confrontation fueled his rise and helped him connect with voters who felt ignored or dismissed. But there is a line between channeling emotion and being consumed by it. This moment appeared to cross that line. Instead of reframing the conversation or pivoting to policy, Trump lashed out at the poll, the network, and anyone associated with delivering bad news. That's not counterpunching. That's reacting. Strategic campaigns pick their battles carefully. They decide when to respond, when to ignore, and when to redirect. Trump's reaction showed none of that restraint. By amplifying his outrage publicly, he elevated a single poll into a broader narrative about instability and insecurity. What could have been a one-day headline turned into a multi-day story, not because of the numbers, but because of the response. This approach may still resonate with Trump's most loyal supporters. For them, anger reinforces authenticity. It signals that he's fighting, that he's under attack, and that the system is still aligned against him. But campaigns are not won on loyalty alone. They are won on expansion. An emotional overreaction, especially toward friendly institutions, risks alienating undecided voters who prioritize steadiness over spectacle. There's also a credibility cost. When every unfavorable development is met with outrage, voters begin to discount the message. Constant escalation flattens urgency. If everything is a crisis, nothing is. Over time, emotional saturation can weaken impact, making it harder for a candidate to command attention when it truly matters, during debates, major policy rollouts, or unexpected events. More importantly, emotion-driven responses can crowd out strategy. While Trump was busy attacking a poll, rival candidates were free to position themselves as calmer, more disciplined alternatives. In modern political campaigns, contrast is everything. One candidate's volatility becomes another candidate's selling point. By leaning into outrage, Trump may inadvertently be helping opponents define themselves against him. History offers a clear lesson here. Campaigns that win late-stage races are usually those that project control under pressure. They acknowledge challenges without magnifying them. They show voters that they can handle adversity without unraveling. Emotional intelligence, knowing when not to react, is often just as important as charisma or conviction. This doesn't mean emotion has no place in politics. It does. But emotion must serve a goal. It must be aimed, deliberate, and disciplined. When emotion replaces strategy, it stops being persuasive and starts being revealing. Trump's response to the Fox poll revealed a campaign sensitive to narrative slippage and struggling to maintain control over the storyline. In the end, voters aren't just choosing a fighter, they're choosing a leader. And leadership is measured not by how loudly you respond when challenged, but by how confidently you stay on course. In a race where margins may be thin and patience may be tested, emotional control could be the difference between momentum gained and momentum lost. In politics, moments of tension are rarely isolated. They ripple forward, shaping perception, momentum, and strategy. That's why Donald Trump's reaction to the Fox News poll matters far beyond the numbers themselves. It's not just about a snapshot of voter preference. It's about what it signals for the campaign's future, the Republican primary, and the broader political landscape. The first thing to understand is that public perception drives momentum. Voters, donors, and party operatives watch closely not just the polls, but how candidates respond to them. A candidate who demonstrates composure and strategic thinking under pressure inspires confidence. A candidate who reacts with visible anger risks being perceived as unstable or unprepared. By lashing out at Fox News, Trump gave the appearance that unfavorable data shakes him deeply, an image that rivals and analysts will seize upon. Momentum in politics is fragile, and perception often moves faster than the facts. This episode also highlights the challenge of sustaining long-term campaigns. Republican voters are divided across generational lines, regional differences, and ideological priorities. Maintaining support requires not just loyalty from the base, but also the ability to appeal to undecided and moderate voters. When a candidate allows emotion to dictate response rather than strategy, it narrows the field of engagement. Repeated confrontations with allies or influential media figures risk isolating key segments of the electorate and limiting coalition-building opportunities. Another factor is the impact on party dynamics. Party leaders, strategists, and donors often look for candidates who can unify and build consensus. Repeated eruptions over polling numbers, even from traditionally friendly sources, may signal to insiders that Trump's approach is increasingly volatile. In politics, perceived vulnerability can be as influential as actual numbers. The Fox poll may have been one of many data points, but Trump's reaction amplified its importance and invited scrutiny from across the party. Yet, perhaps the most crucial takeaway is about leadership under pressure. Campaigns inevitably face setbacks, unfavorable polls, missteps, or attacks from opponents. How a candidate responds to those challenges often defines the race as much as policy proposals or slogans. Leaders who adapt, analyze, and pivot demonstrate strength. Leaders who respond primarily with emotion reveal cracks that opponents and voters can exploit. Trump's response may resonate with loyal supporters in the short term, but the long-term consequences depend on whether he can convert reaction into strategy or whether it continues to undermine his narrative of inevitability. Finally, this moment underscores the uncertainty of the primary race. Trump remains a dominant figure, but dominance alone is not an election strategy. It is a perception that must be reinforced continually through disciplined campaigning, coalition building, and messaging. The Fox poll and Trump's response to it remind us that in politics, no lead is permanent, no alliance unshakable, and no narrative guaranteed. The question is not whether Trump will fight back. It's whether he can translate outrage into a winning strategy, or whether this moment marks the start of a more vulnerable chapter in his political journey. In the end, what this episode tells us is clear. Anger is a signal, but strategy is the currency of power. Polls will continue to arrive, rival campaigns will continue to move, and voters will continue to judge. How Trump responds, not just today, but in the weeks and months ahead, may determine whether he consolidates support or faces mounting challenges. In politics, as in leadership, the future belongs not to those who react the loudest, but to those who act the smartest. So, is Donald Trump done? That decision doesn't belong to pundits, polls, or even Fox News. It belongs to the voters. But moments like this matter. They shape perception, influence momentum, and reveal how a candidate handles pressure. As the political landscape continues to shift, one thing is clear. Anger alone is not a strategy. And in a race defined by endurance, discipline may matter more than volume.